They really did us like that. They really did us dirty like that with that cliffhanger. What the hell, man? Oh, I hate it, but I like it at the same time. Maybe I'm a masochist, but man, what a good episode we had today of Danmachi. I think this episode was fantastic, guys. You want to talk about character development in this episode? It's insane. I think this is the episode where Bell officially becomes a hero. And here's the thing. Bell has done numerous heroic things throughout the series. We all know that. He's the MC. Of course he's going to. But I would say in this moment right here, I think he truly steps into the role. And it was great to see, honestly. So let's just get straight into it, honestly, and talk about Danmachi, Season 4, Part 2, Episode 8 today. We got a lot to go over. So our episode begins today with, you guessed it, another flashback sequence that we've come to love as we hear ideals versus reality, huh? What, did Elise and Kaguya try to start another debate or something? As we hear Lila say, I recommend putting on your best serious face and nodding along when they do that. They can go on for hours. As Ryu says, come on Lila, I'm trying to ask you a genuine question here. As she says, oh, here we go. You elves are so annoying at times. The right answer is subjective, you know. It's different depending on who you ask. Whether something is true or correct is ultimately up to each of us to decide. So make a truth that's acceptable to you. And it's here Lila gets a bit serious as she says, all right, listen to me, Leon. Knowledge is your weapon. Information is your friend. Everything I've taught you may very well save your ass someday. Whether it's an unorthodox method of some sort, or a seemingly random piece of trivia. As she tells her, there's no rush in understanding, so try and turn your knowledge into wisdom. If you can do that, then you might end up saving someone else's ass someday. You could end up being the coolest elf ever. And you know, guys, when we first got these flashback sequences, I didn't know how important they would be. But over the course of our past couple episodes and the past couple ones of them, I've really come to like them because when Ryu was first in her familia, she's literally Belle. She's young, she's inexperienced, and she doesn't really understand the world just yet. But over the course of her interactions with all these people in her guild, we see how their knowledge has shaped her into the person she is now. She's quite literally turned their knowledge into her wisdom. And I very much like that because we see that over the course of this season, she's been doing the exact same thing to Belle. This is why you gotta listen to the people around you, guys. Because everybody has wisdom they can share. But it's here, we're gonna go back to our present time as we see that Bell and Ryu have finally approached the Coliseum. As Ryu says, it's a very fitting name. The monsters in there spawn indefinitely, no matter how many are defeated. That's its defining feature. When one monster disappears, another one immediately spawns in its place. In other words, it's a perpetual supply, meaning they spawn forever. You're never gonna not have monsters there. As Ryu calls it, a miniature, condensed version of the dungeon itself. It is perhaps the most dangerous area on the 37th floor. And I don't know about you guys, but like, why would they not just destroy this place? Like other adventurers previously, when they found out about it, just blow the place sky high. Forget that. I would never want to go here. But it's here as they fall back to come up with a plan. Ryu says, we have no choice but to cut across the Coliseum. If we reach the other side, we'll end up at a normal route. And once we're there, we shouldn't have much trouble getting to the 36th floor. And as we see that Belle is hesitant to do this like literally anyone would, she says, let me put it this way. If we don't cut across the Coliseum, we can't get to a normal route. It's an adventure we can't weasel our way out of. One we must face. And it's here we start going over our strategy, as she says, there are 4 different exits in this room. Of those, the one that leads to a normal route is positioned directly opposite the passageway we're standing in. Basically, the side that's the furthest from them, the hardest to get to. As Ryu tells him, we're gonna blend in so we do not attract their attention. As she takes out a skull sheep hide. As she says, we'll be camouflaged if we wear this. And as she takes out this putrid smelling bag, she says, we'll also disguise our scent. As she tells Bell that it's a barbarian heart. We'll grind it up and cover ourselves from head to toe. And so long as we're careful not to make any noise, we should be able to trick the monsters. Guys, that sounds absolutely disgusting. Like, you do what you gotta do in this situation, but that sounds awful. And it's here Bell just tells her flat out that, wow, I really would be lost without you, Ryu. You always manage to stay calm, even in situations like this. All I'm good for is getting myself into trouble. I honestly don't think I could escape from the deep floors without your help. Probably not. As Ryu tells him those words again and says, Bell, try to turn your knowledge into wisdom. Let knowledge inform your actions. If you can apply it under the appropriate circumstances, you'll get better at helping others. And you'll end up being a stronger adventurer in the process. And it's here as they're going through their supplies, she tells him, we have 3 blaze rocks left. I want you to take one of them with you. And she tells him, we have no idea what's going to happen from here on out. We ought to divvy up the items so that we can both defend ourselves, regardless of the situation. As Bell takes the blaze rock, and they continue with their plan. And this is extremely suspicious. I don't think Bell is dumb. I think he has an idea of why she would do that. Why all of a sudden, huh? Yes, this is a dangerous area, but all of a sudden she wants to divvy up the items, huh? I think he has a general idea of what she's going to do. As do we, the audience. And it's here as they throw the cloak on, Bell says, if they sense the presence of an intruder, every single monster will come rushing towards us. As he tells himself, don't panic me. We'll sneak right past them without them noticing. And it's here as they start their arduous journey across the bridge. The monsters are suspicious for a second, but they're able to go through okay. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys might be thinking to yourself, oh, he's just going to say, oh, this looks really goofy. How did that work? But no, in this situation, actually, I think this makes perfect sense that this would work. Because you see, in real life, hunters do things like this all the time. They mask their scent and they wear camouflage like this. So it makes literal perfect sense that they would be able to sneak past them as long as they don't do anything too crazy. So I think this is a very smart idea, actually. But it's here, as they get to the entrance of the Coliseum, we see it's pretty wild in there. As we see that all forms of monsters are in here fighting each other, like forever, basically. And it's just pandemonium. As Ryu says, I've been told that these monsters remain locked in a never-ending battle with one another, except for when an intruder encroaches upon their territory. And honestly, guys, this concept is terrifying. They truly do spawn indefinitely. This would be a legitimately horrifying place to have to go through. As Ryu tells Bell, that's our path across the way. It's a long way around, but staying on this level is the safest way to the other side. And it's here as Bell points to another pathway. He asks her, Ryu, would that bridge over there take us to a normal route? As she tells him, unfortunately, no. And while the right-hand side is connected to the maze, our only viable option is the bridge directly in front of us. Meaning, we just gotta suck it up and go to that path. And it's here we see them walking at a snail's pace to try to get to the other side, so they can attract as little attention as possible, as Bell says. Can we really make it all the way across without being seen? And as they continue walking, Bell asks himself, why does a place like this even exist in the dungeon? And it's here we actually transition to a flashback with Aina as she's telling Bell, I've heard stories of an area where monsters pour endlessly from the walls. They aren't around anymore, but I'm told that adventurers from the Zeus and Hera familias once reported as much. They said it was almost as though the dungeon was testing something down there. And this is very interesting, actually, because as we know, the dungeon is basically a character in this show. It's a living entity, basically. So it's very curious that what would they be testing? I hope we find that out at some point. But it's here all of a sudden. Things can't be sunshine and rainbows forever, as we see a skeleton come up from the ground and actually pull Bell down into the Coliseum. As we see that all the monsters now know exactly where they are. As Ryu says, we need to run now. And as we see them hauling ass to the entrance, we see all the monsters know where they are now, as Bell's trying desperately to clear the path for them. As Ryu tells him, there's no point trying to face them head on. We gotta focus on getting to the exit. But it's here we see her leg gives out again, and Bell has to go help her. And right before they're about to get hit by a barbarian's attack, Bell just does a fireball and completely obliterates him, along with a lot of the monsters. As Ryu throws a blaze rock and Bell hits it with firebolt, and they blow away even more monsters. But even though that cleared out a lot of them, it doesn't really do anything because they just keep spawning indefinitely. And they're overwhelmed again, as Bell says. It's no use. No matter how many we kill, they just keep coming. If we don't do something here, they're going to overwhelm us. As he says, we might be able to cross the bridge and get to the exit, but if they end up following us, we're screwed. And as they keep fighting harder and harder and almost get to the entrance, they realize that there's monsters from outside the Coliseum there too. They're trapped. And it's here in this moment, it's time to make a crucial decision. As we hear Ryu say, Bell, head for the bridge. Finish off the enemies ahead of us. I'll use my magic to do something about the enemies behind us. And without even waiting for Bell's response, she immediately starts chanting a spell. And it's in this moment, it became painfully obvious what she planned to do. To everyone except for Bell, I guess. And it's here as Bell is running ahead, clearing out the monsters. We see Ryu finishes her spell as she throws a blaze rock and blows all the ones behind them away. But it's here as Bell ends up looking back at her. We get a very somber moment. And it's here as we see little balls of wind magic forming. She uses them to actually carry Bell over to the other side, over the monsters. And she uses the rest of them to blow up the bridge. As Bell says, I don't understand. Why are you doing this? As she tells him, this is for the best. As Bell realizes she's doing this to save me, and he cannot accept it at all. And as she turns and heads back into the Coliseum, we see Bell, frustrated and angry, run headfirst into the cave. And as we transition back to Ryu, upon seeing Bell run off, she says, good. I've armed him with as much knowledge as I possibly can. Once I'm no longer a burden to him, he should be able to escape the deep floors. As she says, you will mourn my decision, no doubt. Be that as it may, you deserve to live. Far more than I, after the things I've done. And it's here as we see her jump down into the Coliseum, she says, there's really no point in defending myself anymore. But I refuse to go down without a fight. I'd be too ashamed to face Elise and the others if I didn't struggle until my last breath. And it's here as we see Ryu fighting. We see her sword finally shatter. As she says, so this is to be my grave, huh? I'm going to die a plaything for monsters, with neither a corpse nor a shred of my elfin pride to show for it. And it's here we see her just get pummeled like crazy by all these monsters. As she says, but you know what? It's fine with me, because I was able to save him. And it's here she's laying there defeated. We see her reminiscing about her old familia again as she says, please pass judgment on me, everyone. But it's here all of a sudden. We just see a giant explosion occur as we see that Bell has came back for her. And as he jumps down into the Coliseum to get her, she says, how did he come back? as she realizes he went all the way around that other path to come rescue me. As she tells him, "You idiot, we both can't escape from this place. There's still time, turn around and run." And as she's begging him to turn around, Bell won't listen because he's a man on a mission. As Ryu says, "All I wanted was for you to survive. Why?" As all of a sudden, we just start hearing the bell ring. As we see that Bell's infused the power with a blaze rock this time and chucks it sky high. And it's here as we see Ryu think back to her conversation with Elise that day, where she says, what happens if someone manages to make their ideals a reality? She remembers she was told, those are the people we call heroes. As we see Bell grab her hand, shield her, and shoot the blaze rock with Firebolt, as we see a humongous explosion occur. Ryu is shocked to her core. And it's on that cliffhanger that our episode ends. You know, guys, they really would do us dirty like that. Leave us on, like, a really important scene like that, and then be like, next time. Like, fuck you guys. But I think this episode was great. As I said, I think this is the time when Bell truly steps up and becomes a hero. At the very least, he's Ryu's hero. And I think this is a great way to end the episode. There's no way Bell would leave her there. If he left her there, that would go against literally everything he stands for as a character. So I didn't think for a second that he would actually leave her there. And I'm very glad he didn't. But as our episode ended, I just so happened to see the title of next week's episode and immediately thought, oh, this is going to be sad. This is going to be sad. We're going to have a sad one next week, guys, where we're finally going to see exactly what happened to her familia. So be prepared for that. I know I got to be prepared. But let me know your thoughts on this episode. I thought it was great, actually. So I'd love to hear your opinions down below. But until next time, guys, I hope you have a great day, week, month, and year. And until then, deuces and have a blessed day. I'll see you guys next time.